What do you desire? What would you like to do if money were no object? How would you really enjoy spending your life?
Awesome. Well, thank you for coming on the podcast, by the way, again. I really appreciate it. I would love to start off by maybe just like hearing a bit more about your story, and like your personal transformation over the last couple of years. We've
Yeah.
kind of connected throughout the last couple of years, and things have just been like moving forwards for you, and it's been looking really cool. And I'd love to know sort of like what your journey has been so far, and
Yeah.
where you were to like where you are now, and sort of what, how you got there and what's been going on for you.
Yeah. I love that question. I love it when people go, "What's your story?" Because it gives me the autonomy to sort of go out there and just say whatever I want to say. Yeah, so I'm born, bred in Melbourne, from Melbourne, and come from a very academic family. So my family always had this mindset of, you go to school, you get a good education, you study very hard, and then you sort of pursue a career within a field. So for a bit of context, my dad's a doctor, my mom's an engineer. And so being of Indian background, there was only a few options that sort of guaranteed your success. So, it was like doctor, engineer, lawyer, commerce, right? And so growing up in that type of environment, myself and my siblings sort of had this idea of what success really looked like for us. And so I followed that because I didn't necessarily know any other way. But I always knew from a very young age that I wanted to be successful, that I knew that I was going to do something. I just didn't know what it was going to be like. And so I thought, okay, maybe it's going to be in the career space. So I did that. I did, worked hard at school. I got into uni. I did an undergrad in neuropsych and then went on to do the JD, which is law school, which I'm almost finished now. I'll be finished next year.
Nice.
And I suppose the big pivotal moment for me was particularly around COVID time, right? Just before COVID, because obviously the world shut down. It sort of forces us to put things into perspective and makes us consider, okay, well, where am I going? Because sometimes, I don't know if a lot of people resonate with this, but something that I would do is I would get so stuck in the routine and get onto things that I wouldn't stop to consider where I was going.
Mhm.
So during that time, my partner, Noel, he and I were both wanting to look into other things, wanting to network, kind of broaden our education in a way. And so through our networking efforts during that time, got connected to some mentors within the entrepreneurial space. Learned that they had a mentorship program to take on people, to coach and mentor on how to generate passive income online, as well as really focusing on personal development, mindset, leadership. And I remember when I came across these terms, it's so cringe thinking about it now, but I always thought personal development is for people who aren't developed. In saying that, it's something that I don't need to do. I don't need to focus on it. I can just focus on making money, and then, everybody else can worry about personal development. But at the beginning of my entrepreneurial journey, I was hit, like with a bunch of things that I hadn't dealt with properly. So a lot of my mindset, a lot of my limiting beliefs, a lot of ego, a lot of things that I suppose did come up in other aspects of my life, but I had the privilege of putting it aside. But in entrepreneurship, I didn't. And so over the last 4 years now, we've been sort of doing that, growing our business, and are now in a position where we're coaching and mentoring other people as well, which is super exciting. And we'll be in a position within the next 18 to 24 months to, match and replace our job income and step away from work, if that's what we choose to do. And I suppose in that whole journey, when I say it like that, it sounds great, but really it's been hard, and it's been difficult. But I would say the biggest lesson that I've learned throughout all of that is you're capable of doing whatever you set your mind to. You really can do whatever you set your mind to. And so it's just more, are you willing to put in the work to get there? Because the world really moves out of the way. When for a person who knows what they want and willing to do some work to get it, it really does. It just doesn't always come to you in the way that you want. So yeah, that's a little bit about my story, my background.
Nice.
But yeah.
Nice. Thank you. You mentioned your version of success back then growing up. I'm interested to know, what was your version of success back then compared to what is your version of success right now?
My version of success back then was financial stability, to be able to have a lot of money, to be able to have a lot of choices. And for a little bit of context, I was raised in a single parent household where money, there wasn't a lot of it a lot of the time. And so I think being the oldest and also sort of seeing a lot of that stuff around me, I really focused so much on, well, money is the only thing that's holding us back. Okay, well, if I have a lot of money, if I pursue a career that has a lot of money, then I'll be successful. Then I'll be able to do all the things that I want to do. And I believe there is a certain element of truth to that to a degree, where I think money indirectly can contribute to success, because with a lot of money, you can also cause a lot of impact, a lot of positive impact, and impact other people's lives, which is now part of my definition of success. And I think for me, success really is to be able to have a value system, whatever that is, right? For me, I've got 5 main values. It is my community, my relationships, my business, health, and my God, religious. You got your values, and if you're able to create a life which is in line with your values and you're able to embody all of those things, you're a successful person. So for me, I try to embody that. There's 5 main things in my life. Am I being healthy? Am I spiritually grounded? Do I have fruitful and healthy, abundant relationships? I look at all of those things, and if I am embodying all of that, I'm a successful person now, before even achieving a lot of those goals. And I'm not successful just because I haven't achieved my goals. And I think that sort of, upon a lot of reflection, maybe think about a lot of conditional and unconditional love as well, because it made me go, well, if I don't achieve a lot of things, then I'm not worthy of the love and the praise. But that's not true. We're all deserving of unconditional love, unconditional acceptance. But somewhere along the line, I misinterpreted that.
Yeah.
And felt that, okay, well, if I make a lot of money and do a lot of those things, that would make me more successful. So that would be my definition of success.
Interesting.
Now.
I really like it. I think being able to like create your own personal values and then living your life through those values is really helpful, especially for like any decision making, anything in your life. If you come to like have to question yourself, and you can come back to those 5 values and they can give you the answer and the direction to go. It's something that I've been working on for a while, and I really believe that that's super important for people to like look at themselves and create their own values and create their own sort of even like life philosophy is sort of what I talk about. And when I write and when I journal, it's all about like developing my own life philosophy of how I want to live and live through that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to hear you say that, but I also have a question, like, how did you go about defining and creating those? Because there's a couple things in there. It's like, one, it can just be pretty difficult, but also 2, it requires you to have like a vision of what's possible and like a vision of yourself, which when talking to other people, I've found that some people have a lot of difficulty even envisioning themselves or a different version of themselves or a better version of themselves or even any of those things that one would want.
Yeah.
They find it really difficult. So I'm interested to know, how did you go about defining your 5 values? And yeah, I'd love to hear a bit more about that.
That's a great question.
Thank you.
It's a really good question. For me, I believe that all growth comes from a place of dissatisfaction. And so if you're actually wanting change in your life, you need to be dissatisfied with where you are. So if you look at yourself, all right, so I'll put an example of me. 4 years ago, I was out of shape. I wasn't eating properly, just eating a lot of junk food and being a little naughty with the snacks and not really eating right. I didn't fill my mind. I would spend heaps of time on social media, not really giving myself adequate boundaries with that. I wasn't surrounding myself with good people. I wasn't pouring into any aspect of my life. And so I was unhappy. And so when it comes to creating values in your life, I would just recommend really looking a hard look at yourself in the mirror and saying, okay, what do I want to change? For me, it all started with the physical health. I didn't just wake up one morning and say, these are my values. I just started with one. My first value, all right, let me just eat better and exercise every day. COVID happened. It was easy to do that. You know, I had a lot of time. There wasn't any other commitments I had. It was just started off walking around the block. Then I would walk every day. Then I said, okay, I'm going to have a goal to do a half marathon at the end of the year. Mind you,
Nice.
had absolutely no training experience, you know, definitely not like a Callum Scott type runner where, you know, he's running 50 kilometers in 50 days, nothing like that. I, again, didn't come from a family that was very into sport or physically active by any means. And so I just said, okay, I need to make this my goal. And so, literally from the beginning of COVID to the end, I said, okay, let me just try to do this half marathon. So I would run every week and I would set myself goals and plans to do that. What that actually did, which I didn't intend it to do, is that it created discipline in my life and, of course, consistency. And it also helped me really level up my mindset. And so when it did get to the end of the year and I did do my first half marathon, I struggled, but I did it.
Nice.
I then was able to reflect and go, wow, I actually can do things that I set myself to. Okay, what else can I focus on? What's something else I can improve on? Well, I said, well, I'm not really happy with the community of people I surround myself with at the moment. Okay, let me try to expand that. And so, like I mentioned, I did have the luxury of being connected to a mentorship program. I had mentors, I had people in my life speaking into me where they were able to sort of give me guidance around that area and really how to seek out those relationships. But if anything I could impart to everyone here is try find someone like that. It doesn't have to be an official mentor, but just someone who's got the results in life that you want. You know, maybe you look at them and say, wow, like they're really successful. They've got an incredible relationship. They're incredible marriage. They're incredibly healthy, you know, or they're very successful in their particular career or their job. Seek them out. Ask them. Say, hey, how can I do it? I think when we sit there and we think about how can I fix my life and we try to do it all by ourselves, that's when it's lonely and that's when it's incredibly difficult. But when you have a community of people around you and you've got that guidance, it's actually very easy. And so I would say start with one, then build up and make sure you've just got the right kind of guidance as well in your life.
Okay, nice. You mentioned asking yourself some questions and, you know, what else can I maybe improve or what else can I do here? I want to know what's your method for introspection. So like, do you journal or what do you do to ask yourself these questions? Because even asking yourself questions is difficult.
100%.
And you know, people could just sit there, I guess, like on the train going somewhere and then just think about it. But something, it's a bit different when you sit down and intentionally write or look into yourself. So I'm interested to know what you do in particular to kind of self-assess and self-inquire.
Self-inquire. I like that. I'm stealing
Thanks.
that.
You can take it. Or
So
self-investigate.
100% self-investigate.
Yeah.
I do a few things. For a bit of context, I was not someone who was naturally introspective. I actually had a lot of problems connecting with my emotional self, where I was actually someone who was quite a reactive person. I still am a very emotional person, but I didn't know how to wield that. I didn't know how to control those things. And so what would happen is there'd be situations where things would come up, situations would happen, and I would just react. I would just be angry. I would just be sad. And I never really knew why I was sad. And that made me feel very disconnected to myself, very lost, because I would go, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I responding this way? Like, why am I just reacting? Why am I not able to really say what I'm feeling? And I wasn't able to is because I never gave myself a chance to really get to know my emotional self. And so what I started with, and sometimes journaling was a very daunting prospect, I just took some paper out and I started writing poetry.
Oh wow.
Terrible poetry. But it would just be focused on, it's just poetry for me, right? And it would just focus on a feeling, anger. All right, let's write what that looks like. Is it dark? Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Where in my body am I feeling it? I would just describe that. But what I was doing is I was building a pattern of really being in tune with my body, because I'm a believer that your emotional health and your physical health are very much connected. And so when I was feeling a lot of those things, I'm like, okay, I may not have a particular answer right now, but let's start there. And so as I was kept practicing that journaling practice, and I did do meditation as well. Again, just breathing, putting a timer on, calm music and I would just let myself be, I then was able to take more control over my mind. Because your mind is really, if you don't have control of your mind, you don't have control of anything. And for me, as somebody who was emotional, who who tended to be a bit anxious, all of those things, you really need to take care of your mind. And so that is just being honest with yourself. Like, think about it. If you wanted to check in on a friend, what do? You message them, hey, how you doing? What have you been up to? Let's catch up. But we never do that for ourselves, though. We need to be our biggest friend. And I find journaling and meditation a way of doing that. Because when you're sitting there and you're writing, you're not just writing random things. You're saying, hey, how have you been? I haven't connected with you recently. What's been going on? It's such an intimate way of getting to know yourself. But then once you start doing that and eventually develop that awareness in yourself, you're able to really be a better person in all of your relationships and all assets of life. Like, in put in the context of my relationship, Noelle and I, we've been together for 6 years now. And the first couple of years, I was very young. I was 18 when we met each other. I had absolutely no emotional awareness, absolutely no self-awareness. And so when I was angry, I would just react. I'm like, oh, I'm just mad, like, and just, go crazy and react. But now it's like, hey, I know why I'm upset. I'm upset because this happened. This happened because this situation made me feel that way. How can we move forward? It's given me this sense of autonomy and control. Because yes, I can't necessarily, if I respond to a particular situation, that's in my control. I might be feeling something. I might feel sad. I might feel angry. I might feel jealous. That's fine. But the way I articulate that, the way I respond, that's on me. It's not Noelle's fault. It's no one else's fault. It's mine. And if I can't communicate that properly, if I can't communicate that correctly, that's on me. Because what would happen is I would get into these situations where my feelings were extremely valid. But because of my communication, because of my delivery, the message was lost and I walked away being the bad person. Who does that benefit? I had to fix me. I had to fix how I was responding. I had to fix how I was communicating. And so by being able to do all of these self-reflective activities, I was able to really harness myself with that power again, which just made me, able to conduct a lot of these situations a lot better.
Nice. What was the most difficult thing you had to overcome about yourself, in your relationship and your reactivity? What was there one thing that stands out that was the most difficult thing to sort of learn to control or solve or improve?
Ego.
It's a tough one.
Yeah. Ego is it's tricky because it's all about preserving yourself, protecting yourself, not wanting to show that you're hurt. And I saw this beautiful quote. I was listening to a podcast by Jay Shetty, and he was interviewing the psychologist. Her name escapes me, and she talks a lot about how a lot of anxiety and a lot of fears in showing up is that we show up, but we're afraid of people seeing that we are wanting. And I think that's where my ego played a huge role, is that I didn't want to be seen wanting. I wanted to be seen as calm, steady, and nothing can hurt me. But humans aren't like that.
Yeah.
Right. And so for context, I suppose from a very young age, I grew up with a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety, a lot of very volatile emotions. And so, but I would express it in a way where my ego would still protect me. I did that because of this. It's not my fault. I wouldn't take full ownership or responsibility. And so I would take that into my relationships. I'll be frank, up until probably a year ago, I struggled to apologize to people. I'm sorry. Oh, like the words would just like get stuck in my throat where I knew I made a mistake, but to say that I made a mistake was so difficult
Mm,
because if I said I was sorry for something, then it would mean that I actually played a role in someone else's suffering and someone else's pain, and I couldn't handle that. So I would make up these stories in my head of, oh, that's your fault because you did this, and I just, and so it was really interesting. My ego would protect me in a lot of ways, and it's really interesting. I came across this quote, and again, I'm not sure where I'm getting these quotes. It's just I go about life and I receive a lot of it. Something that was said
nice.
was the personality you are right now, or the personality that you are growing about in your life, is the person that you needed when you were younger to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And I genuinely believe that with me is that this tough exterior, this I've got it all under control, I need to be perfect, I need to figure all of that out, that is all there to protect that little girl.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was my ego was protecting me. So I had to break away from that because yes, maybe it protected me when I was younger, doesn't protect me now. It's actually doing more damage and it's
Yeah.
actually pushing a lot of people away. And so I had to really have, and this is an ongoing journey, by the way. It's definitely not conquered by any means. And so I really want to put that out there is everything that I'm talking about, it's always a journey.
Yeah.
It's just through ongoing dialogue, like what I said before, really communicating it. I feel really upset. I'm hurt, and really being more vulnerable in my relationships because I had this tendency, being the oldest in my family, to not be very vulnerable. I didn't really open up very much. I would want my siblings to see that I was this steady person. And this wasn't something that they ever told me to do as well. It was just something that I felt like I had to. And so when you sort of take on that role, you start negating your own emotional needs a lot of the time because you say, I don't have the time to feel these things. I need to be there for someone else. And so when you are confronted with a lot of your own emotions at some point, you don't know what to do with it. You're like a kid in a grown up's body. You don't know. You're like, I don't know what to do. I'm going to chuck a tantrum because that's what I feel like I should do. And so, and a lot of that is rooted in ego. A lot of that is rooted in that. And so I do a lot of reading as well. I read a lot of books. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I have a lot of conversations with my mentor, really, really vulnerable conversations where I'm just like, hey, this is me. I'm open. Tell me. Because if you genuinely want to grow and you want to work through some of your biggest challenges, you have to accept that you're not perfect
Mm.
and that you can't grow if you keep thinking you've got it right all the time, which was my biggest mistake for a long time.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good way to
Mm.
put it. The whole like you have to be able to look at yourself and be like, this ain't it. Like
Mm.
I'm not the top, you know? I have so much that can be worked on, and you just have to accept that what you are now as well is simply just a byproduct of everything that's happened to you, and it's
Mm.
not who you have to stay to be,
Mm.
and you have full control to just continue to change that direction of wherever you're going and growing and developing.
Mhm.
um and you mentioned before about how you didn't want to be you didn't want to show that you wanted, and
Mm.
it's so funny because I feel like that is so common, and like I think I sort of struggle with that a little bit, but not so much. I'm the youngest child of my family, and
Yeah.
the difference between me and my older siblings, who are 5 and 6 years older than me,
Yeah.
um I feel like I was always like expressing that I wanted to be wanted, like annoying people, like come on, like look, like don't forget about me, you
Love
know.
me.
But I sort of just and see that my older siblings kind of took the route similar to you, where they were sort of like playing this role of like they want to be the caretaker, or showing me that they're okay, and maybe not showing as many emotions
Mm.
growing up. And it's so cool to see how different dynamics and different families create children, and how they grow, and everyone has these things that happen to them that um, define who they are now. But it's so important to be able to look at all of that stuff and try to find the good, what to
Mm.
keep, and then things that you want to continue to improve and maybe get rid of or deal
Mm.
with or overcome.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think childhood is so fascinating. Just with like the way people develop and like parents, and then like why the parents were this way, and just like family dynamics.
Mm.
Very fascinating. But
Mm.
I want to go back a little bit. You mentioned a bit more about your mentor, and um, is it female, or you just have one mentor?
I have multiple, but yeah, I have female, male, and I also have a
Okay.
couple of others as well. Yeah.
What are oh, actually, wait, no, I had a question previously, which was a little bit further back,
Okay.
which was about your relationship and how your you and your partner sort of like dealt with um maybe, like you said, you were a bit more what's the word, kind of like reactive. You said you were more
Mm.
reactive towards the start, and then through that time you've obviously been able to grow. But I'm interested to know, like, what was your partner able to do for you in that time, and how did he show up, and what other
Mm.
challenges did you guys face that you really worked hard to overcome? Because like you said, it's not like a you have to deal with your own stuff, but at the same time, like, together, so I'm
Yeah.
interested to know, like, what was it like with your partner and you while you were going through these developments, and yeah, what were challenges? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my partner, he's the youngest. And so he embodies a lot of the qualities you talked about, which is, yeah, I don't mind. Everyone like me. I'm like, you're my friend, And so it's been amazing because he's really brought that childlike quality out of me as well, which I really value and I really appreciate, because sometimes you lose that. And so he's really helped me reconnect that in a really profound way. And something that I have to say, particularly with relationships in general, is that people just don't fall into a long term relationship. I mean, they do, but if you want it to be successful, it takes hard work. Like, you work. And I was fortunate enough to meet someone who's willing to do the work with me. Because when we met, we were 18, we were lost, we had no idea what we were going to do in our life, right? We were not your prime candidates of success at the beginning. But one thing that he did had was the willingness to figure it out, as did I. And so really understanding what each other's needs were, that was a really big thing. He is very open, compassionate, very emotionally expressive and intelligent. And so when I was like feeling all of these things, he had the maturity to understand that it had nothing to do with him. It was everything to do with me. And he called me out on it too. He would be like, you know what, Navya, like, I appreciate you're feeling sad right now, but I didn't do anything to warrant this reaction from you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think loving someone and supporting someone isn't just always giving them a hug, it's holding up a mirror. And that's what he did. He would understand that, hey, like, of course I'll be here for you, but you can't respond that way to me because I know I didn't warrant that reaction from you. So what is actually going on? What's the concern here? What's the issue? And that would then allow me to take off that armor, if you will, and be able to really open up and connect, because I realized, oh, this isn't working. Like, I suppose, in a lack of better terms, it's your immature ways don't respond. And, I find that we often ask for love in the most unloving ways. And so for me, reacting in that way, that was me actually saying, hey, I need you. Like, I want to connect. And so when he said those things, as difficult as it was to hear at the time, it was what I needed. And conversely, when I was actually really sad or I really needed that hand, he had this knowing of, hey, she just needs a hug right now.
Yeah.
Okay. And I was that person where I was like, do you need a hug? No, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I don't know if you find that your partner does the same thing. Are you all good? I'm fine.
Yeah.
She's obviously not fine.
Definitely.
I'm obviously not fine, but and he just saw through all of that. And so what that really meant for us to overcome a lot of challenges and was really being able to communicate. So one thing for me is I'm someone who's a bit of a straight arrow when I communicate. It's almost a bit too blunt. And that was my pride and joy. I was like, you either love me or hate me. Like, that's just who I am. It's like, no, you can definitely improve the way you communicate.
Yeah.
And for Noel, he had a lot of people pleasing.
Mm.
He had a lot of, I just want people to like me. He needed to fix a lot of boundaries. And so we really learned a lot from one another. And we were able to kind of take each other's strengths, but also mitigate a lot of those weaknesses. And so now what we do, we always have ongoing check-ins. So every week we sit down and we're like, hey, how is everything? How's this relationship going well? Are there any things that you need? You know, is there anything that you don't need? And so I suppose being able to have that open dialogue. And another thing that really comes to mind when it comes to a successful relationship, at least in my eyes, is really giving Noel the space to be him and him giving space to be me. Because I have never felt like restricted or that I can't pursue my dreams or I can't go out after things because of him. If anything, he pushes me. He's like, you can do better. You can dream bigger. You can go even further. And that is amazing because when you have someone like that in your corner who's really just advocating for you, you know, damn, that belief that does so much because sometimes you don't even believe in yourself, but that person does. That's when you know you're going to go really far. And so, and I do that with him too. And, you know, like I mentioned before, Noel and I were both in business together, and that sometimes means that he's busy at certain times, I'm busier at other times. And so we really need to have that ongoing dialogue of, hey, look, I know it's been a busy week, but I would really appreciate if we could take some time to maybe do XYZ this week, right? So for me, my love language is quality time. Excuse me, is quality time. So being able to spend one-on-one time together. And so saying that, hey, I would really appreciate if we could have some time together because we haven't hung out in a while. And yeah, he'd be like, yeah, 100% I can do that. So I guess this goes back to your first original question, which was emotional maturity and being able to communicate that. Because what I was doing is I would just wait until things got so bad and then I would explode. And he's like, where is this coming from? I had no idea. And I think women have a tendency to, because we are very intuitive beings, we can sense things, but unsaid things. And so we have this expectation that our partners will do the same, and they can't.
Yeah.
I would expect Noel to be as intuitive as I was. I'm like, I could tell you're upset. I could tell you're upset. Well, why couldn't you tell me? Because he's not like that. He's not able to. It's fine. Just get over that next hurdle and communicate that. Because I wasn't going to play any more games anymore. I was going to let him just really be him. And so by giving him space to really be who be who he wants to be and really pursue what he wants, he then has flourished into sort of an incredible leader, an incredible man that, you know, I'm very proud to be with. But we're ongoing. It's always ongoing and there's always things to learn. And so as we kind of keep progressing through every stage of life, I know there's going to be more things that come up along the way.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's so good to hear. I think also another thing with communication, and like you said, you have to be willing to almost like get over yourself to then ask, and then like ask for to see each other or to be the one to put forward an offer, and then that's the very thing, you know, I feel like you would stop at because you don't want to get rejected. And yeah, it's all about then dealing with like this rejection and like from your partner, and but like it's not even about that. It's about like are they able to do this? Does it work for both of us? And to be able to sort of like step back and see it from that angle is really powerful, I think.
How about you and your partner?
Yeah, it sounds very similar actually, our two relationships. She was also very straight arrow, like very good at communicating what she wanted and putting in boundaries, whereas I was like the opposite. Like I still am like sort of struggling to with some areas of my life put in strict boundaries. I think growing up the youngest, I also saw like my whole family dynamic, and I always wanted to be like making sure everyone's all good, and could easily see when people are not good and like what they need almost to be good. So I'm like trying to fill those gaps for them, which is unhelpful for me and for them in the long run. But yeah, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of communication is something that we're trying to still like figure out very very well. And I think being able to identify like how to communicate stuff, when to communicate stuff, and like not taking things personally. I think we sort of run into this challenge where she might be unhappy about something, or something might I could have done something that would make her unhappy, and then it's like a reaction towards me, and all I want is just like, can we just not react this way to each other and just try to remove our emotions? Not saying you can't feel them, but like don't communicate through them. And
that's good.
Yeah. There's a couple things that we've gone through that I've found like that are really, really helpful. And that's one of them, which is don't communicate through your emotions. Like just, you can feel them. Just like put them over there for a second and then communicate something, and like you can still feel them, because we went through this whole thing where I would just tell her like, stop feeling like, just stop being so emotional about all this, whatever. Like you don't need to be emotional about like whatever's happening. And what I was trying to say was, you're upset or you're angry, and you're being angry towards me, and you're communicating that angrily towards me, which is not helpful to the situation. But what I should have said is, you can feel angry. And actually that's something she would say. She's like, you don't want me to feel my emotions, or you want me to stop feeling my emotions. And I'm like, oh, okay, hold up. That's a miscommunication. I don't want you to stop feeling them. I want you to still feel them, but don't communicate through them. And then we sort of came to this realization. So that's one thing, which is communicate. Don't communicate through your emotions. And then the other thing, which was really helpful and took us a while to figure out, which was don't communicate in definites. So if it's so funny, because something happens and then like another thing because of that happens, and then like another thing happens, it is like this chain reaction of like bullshit, like unnecessary things.
Totally. And the point of the conversation is, why are we even here in the first place?
Exactly. And so we came to this realization of definites, where let's just say, for example, she would say, or I would say, can you finish washing those dishes that you left in the sink? And then something happens, and then my response normally would be, you never wash the dishes, or I'm always washing the dishes. And when you say I'm never, or when you say you never,
and you go,
and I always, it's not true. No matter how much it feels true that they never do this, you're just saying you never do it. And then that never, that definite, brings the response to, whoa, but I definitely do. Like I've definitely done the dishes, you know. And you get down to like these semantic little things, and then those things just create like all this other shit. So just never speak in definites is one of them, and don't communicate through your emotions is my other bit of relationship advice. But yeah, like you said, it's a lot of work. Like relationships are a lot of hard work, a lot of understanding, a lot of like it's all self work really. And I think mostly like such an ongoing thing, you know, like what we said before, people are so complex, and people's childhood and life experiences all create so many different things, and like you just have these expectations to have them be a certain way or get things the same way you did. And like I definitely had all these expectations for her to just be like, come on, like just get over it. Like to me, like it doesn't bother me, like just it's this tiny thing. But then like she would have an expectation for me, and it just doesn't work like that. You just have to understand that you're completely different people. You need to work on yourselves and the relationship as a whole. And yeah, there's a lot. This is like a whole probably like podcast, you know. But
totally. Oh my God, I love that. Especially when you said don't communicate through your emotions, is it's amazing because when you know that when you're emotional, you can't say anything that's going to be kind of useful. And so sometimes when I'm in an argument with Noel and I'm really emotional, I'm like, you know what? I need a minute. I'll say that I need a minute. I'm not ready to break through on this yet, but I just need to process this because I'm going to say something I'll regret.
Yeah.
And he needs to give me the space to do that. Because at the beginning he would freak out. He's like, why? Like, let's resolve it now. Like, why do we have to make this thing? And why do we have to keep talking about it? And I said, I know. But if I need to actually break through this, I need to figure out why I'm so upset in the first place. So
Yeah.
give me a second. And now we do that. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I need a minute. I'll go there because that's how I like to process stuff. When I'm upset is, yes, I'm all about talking about it, but I need to make sense of it in my own mind. And if people rush me through that process, then I get angry. And that's when I find that. And it's all figuring it out. It's like knowing how you are in that way. And so sort of putting in these strategies to give you an opportunity to put your best foot forward in these type of conversations.
Yeah, that's really good. It also sounds similar to our relationship.
Yeah.
And we sort of ran into the challenge of when, and I'm always like, why do we need to prolong this? Like, let's just like, it could be 30 seconds and we're done, you know? But she wants to take time and she needs time to process stuff. And we sort of ran into this problem where still the way one was asking for space was more like get away from me or like I don't want to be here. And then and like it's so particular, like the communication, it's just like such tiny little things to just saying like I don't want to be near you, or I don't want to, like, get away from me, versus I need a minute, or can I have some time. It's very different. It's very tiny change and a very different outcome, because it's just like adding all of these extra little like potential avenues for new problems, you know? And it's just like super challenging sometimes to be mindful of the way you communicate and how to communicate. And like
I agree.
it's just like this constant massive like work in progress and learning. But yeah, there was one other thing I was just going to mention before. Psst, hey you, you, if you've made it this far, I just want to say a huge thank you. You have no idea how much it means to me, and I would love to express the immense amount of gratitude that I have for you. If you're enjoying the content so far, your support can truly help the podcast flourish. By simply subscribing, following, and liking and sharing, you're ensuring that our valuable content connects with the right audience, and it helps allow me to bring even more awesome content to you. Thanks again, and I really do hope you enjoy the rest of the episode, and many more to come. We can move more towards the mentor stuff, which I wanted to ask a bit more about in terms of like your biggest takeaways from your mentor so far. I guess let's say like personal and then like relationships as the two categories, maybe, if you're willing to share it.
Of course. That is something that I learned. So two main mentors come to mind at the moment, probably more, and they both play two very different roles in my life, right? So one mentor, I go to her. She's been married for over, 10, 12 years now. She's a mom. She's kind of got a bit more, I suppose, life experience in that aspect. And she's very much the woman that I aspire to be. And I suppose I speak to her a lot about my own emotional health and the way I sort of regulate things. And particularly in a business perspective, it's very disheartening because entrepreneurship is not for the faint of heart. It's not. It's hard. You're not guaranteed success all the time. And, there's going to be a lot of work you've got to put in the front end before you see anything. And I remember calling her and I was just being so frustrated. I was like, oh, nothing's happening, or it's not working out, or this thing that I tried, it's like, is this ever going to happen? And she told me, Navya, you're not entitled to success. You're not entitled to the outcome just because you want it.
Nice.
You get the outcome when you get it, when it's time for you to. And so what she really sparked in me was probably this more spiritual journey, if anything, because I learned that I had to practice a lot of surrender within this journey. And I don't know if that slightly deviates from your question a little bit, but I grew up Hindu, and I never really connected with it in the sense where we would be forced to go, or we'd have to go. We got to go to temple. Okay, why are we going to temple? Because that's just how we do it. Because we just do things that way, so we're going to do it. And so there wasn't a lot of reason, there wasn't a lot of connection for me. But through those conversations with this said mentor, something that she really and allowed me to open up more to was to be able to connect with God in a more fundamental and a more intimate way. And I would say probably only the last year and a half did I really do that. And so I now go to temple quite consistently every week. And I use that time as a way to really just trust and just go, you know what, like I am doing everything that I can right now. Just help me. Just help me figure this out. And so I suppose when it comes to how I approach my life now, it's through that surrender, which is I'm going to do whatever I can to live my life. But life's going to go how it's going to go. You know, I can't necessarily control it. I can't influence. I can't always do that. You know, I can't always control other people's outcomes. That's not my job. And sometimes when you get anxiety about things like that, when you're anxious or worried or scared about outcomes that you have no control over, I remember that mentor, she said, Navya, humble yourself. You're not God. Stop trying to control things you have absolutely no control over. And so I had to sort of slowly practice that surrender and that detachment and allow the chips fall where they may. And that's been an incredible thing. Not only did that really serve in my relationships and my business relationships, my family, my friends, because that sort of operates off the ego a little bit too, hey? When you try to influence people, when you try to control things, because when you try to influence people and control them, and this should happen, that means you can control the outcome because you're trying to create a certainty in your life because you're scared. But that's not your job. That never was your job. Your job in this world is to just live the life that you're meant to live and control the things that you can control. But whatever happens is meant to happen. And I am yet to be proven wrong with that, because things that didn't work out in my favor, and the moment it hurt, it sucked, it was difficult, but man, I'm so grateful it didn't happen.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy. And there's an incredible lady, her name is Lauren London. If you're familiar with her, she used to be married to Nipsey Hussle, the rapper. And she talks about this concept of ego love, where she's like, I don't possess people, I experience them. And what she meant by that was, I'm going to take each of these experiences as they come and really allow it to happen in my life the way it's meant to happen, and can just control the things that I can control. And if they go out of my life, then so be it. If they stay in my life, so be it. But the only thing that I'm going to control is me. Going to be slow and steady. That's always going to stay. And that was really confronting to hear that, through conversations with my mentor, through hearing things like that, because I realized how much I was trying to sort of control a lot of those aspects of my life. Yeah. You can't. You need to practice ultimate surrender, which is still an ongoing thing. And now in my life, I just live my life and I just let things happen. Yeah.
Nice. And you mentioned like experiencing people, and it makes me think about how much energy it takes to try to then control all of these things around you rather than just like letting them be. And I started thinking of or looking at like life more on this like energetic level or perspective, where whether it's like an argument or a disagreement or a person that's just not like providing any positivity or value for you or whatever it is, to look at these things in terms of an energy exchange,
Mm.
and and like think about how much energy it takes to try to change a person or to
Oh
try
yeah.
to
Yeah.
control a situation and have influence on all of these things, versus if you just forgot about all that and kept your energy for yourself, and then you use that energy to then do something with yourself. um,
Mm.
it's just so much more profitable and exchange, if we're
Yeah.
going to talk on those kind of terms. And like, yeah, just thinking of things more energetically and people like that, and just trying to position yourself in terms of like really taking care of yourself and self-love and self-care. And by doing all of those things and by working on yourself and improving yourself and all of that, you're going to indirectly be able to have a good influence on the people around you.
Absolutely.
So it's just
Yeah.
like this weird cycle of like trying to have your hands on everything to fix and change people and manipulate situations around you to make
Mm.
yourself feel a certain way, but you're
Mm.
spending all of your energy on that, and then you've got no energy on yourself, and then it's just this endless cycle of
Yeah.
that. Whereas if you just forgot about it and then spend your energy on yourself, then that same uh, positive influence would occur with everyone around you anyway, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Couldn't have said that better, because I've been that person in my life and could attribute it back to our childhood again. It's sometimes when you grow up in an environment where maybe you see certain things, you experience certain things, and at least in my perspective, I a lot of the time felt that it was something that I could fix, something that I could change, something that I could control. And so that was sort of how I navigated a lot of that dysfunction. And so when I grew up, I started doing that to my friends. I started doing it to my family. I tried to do it, with Noel. It was an ongoing pattern of, hey, you could do this, you can fix this, and trying to change them.
Mm,
But something that I've always stood for is, yes, in my life, to my credit, I'm stepping up, but that doesn't mean necessarily everyone else should be. And everyone's on their own path and everyone's on their own journey. And there's a lot of people in my life where I want so much more for them than what they have. There is so much more that I think that they could be than who they are, but that doesn't change who they are.
mm,
I love them all the same, but that doesn't mean that they're this ideal person. They are who they are because of the decisions that they've made in their lives. And I'm sort of in a position now where life's going to flow. And if those decisions in your life mean that you're no longer going to be a part of mine, so be it.
mm,
There's no judgment there. There's no negativity there. It's all love. Because you're right, because every interaction you have is an energy exchange. Because
yeah,
when you talk to someone who radiates love, radiates positivity, radiates confidence, you take that on. When you're around someone who's repressed, angry, scared, fearful, negative, you take that on too.
yeah,
And so it's in our vested interest. We're not trying to be a martyr in this world to try save everyone. When I say I want to help people and impact people, when I say I'm a coach and mentor and really try to help people get out of their own way, I don't mean I'm trying to change people. I'm trying to show people the way so then they're harnessed enough to go there themselves.
nice.
And that sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But that doesn't make them any less of a human being or any less worthy of love. It just might mean that, hey, going forward, the role that you play in my life might change. And that's not me cutting you off. It's just I'm allowing life to just do what it's thing. Because the same way that we believe, or at least that I believe, that everything that happens in your life is meant to be, that, God or universe or whatever you believe in plays this role in sort of constructing this ideal life to help you get everything that you want, that happens in tandem with everyone else. maybe that person isn't deserving, maybe in that aspect, or maybe not deserving, maybe they're not ready to hear those things yet. Maybe there are more experiences that person needs to have before they're ready to grow, let's say, right? Like for me, I wasn't ready to exercise and improve my health until COVID. I was 20 years old. I knew that if you ate good, exercised every day, you'd feel better about yourself. Why didn't I do it? Because I wasn't ready to make that change. And so I need to give other people the opportunity to be able to step up in their own life to whatever that really means too.
Yeah, I find something it's like sort of similar to something that I used to do. I feel like I would meet people and talk to people, and I always wanted to have like a really good impact on people, and then like see them be making changes and stuff. And you slowly find out and realize that you just like, if someone's not ready, they're not ready, which is part of the reason I think like this is like the podcast that I'm trying to create is something where I can share this type of information, but it's just for the people who come, and it's just for the people who are ready to find it themselves, and then they do it. So I can like still have this positive impact and inspire people to either like feel more belonging or changing themselves and improving themselves, or maybe some sort of community, or there are like-minded people out there or something like that. But it's only for like the right people, and not trying to like brute force your way to make someone change, but instead make it like a soft option for the people who are prepared for that, and like really looking forward to doing that.
Absolutely.
You mentioned more a bit about your childhood. I would love to maybe go into like find out a bit more of like what, if you're comfortable, like what was your childhood like and your experience kind of growing up, and yeah. And maybe like how it defined you. Sorry to go off there. And maybe how it defined you into like 20-year-old Navya to then like obviously now you. But yeah, just like that transition of like your childhood and then like the byproduct of your childhood that you had recently been like uh, working on, I guess.
Yeah. Look, my childhood was interesting. It was interesting because I suppose the first 10 years of my life, my parents were together. Like I mentioned, they were both quite successful in their careers. And so I went to private school. I lived a bit of a privileged life, I would say, for those 10 years financially. But, something that you talked about with your family is like the reason people are dysfunctional is because they haven't necessarily resolved their own traumas or their own things. And I think that was very much the story for my parents. And so, things would happen, things would sort of come up in the house where you bear witness to a lot, and it's not necessarily things that you should always see, things that you should always hear. And then being the oldest, you're often treated as almost this third adult in the house when you're really not. But I think it sort of gave both of my parents respectively some sort of control or security in doing that. And so for them, my childhood was, dysfunctional to a level. There was infidelity involved. There was a lot of emotions ran high. Something that was modeled to me was, if you're angry, react. And so that, again, as I talked about, played a lot in my adulthood. Is if I was angry, I'd just respond, well, yeah, that's all I ever saw. I never saw a really calm, healing conversation. And so I didn't really know any better. And I suppose after my parents split, it was in a position where, it was just my mom and us. And, she, to her credit, was someone who stepped away from a very successful career. I mean, she did do very well, but she was always playing the role of support. And so her income was not as much. She suddenly had 3 kids, had a mortgage, and pretty much had to figure things out, and had a lot of job losses throughout the way. And so during that time, I remember my mum having this conversation with me. She said, listen, you need to get a scholarship to these schools now, because if you don't, you're going to have to go to a government school. Now, there's nothing wrong with a government school, by the way. It's great. But it's just, I guess, being of an Indian background, education is our pride, it's our joy, it's everything. It's everything. And for her dream was always to have us go to the best schools that money could buy. And for her, I could see how much it was hurting her to say that, hey, I can't necessarily fulfill that until you step up. And so then in those situations, my sister and I, we studied hard. We ended up getting scholarships, and that's how we ended up finishing our education in private schools. And so during that time, I saw that if I worked really hard through academically, then that's how I could be successful, because I put myself in rooms like that because of the work that I did when I was young. And I'm very proud of myself for that. But I suppose if there's anything I could go back to myself and say is just, it's okay. You're not trying to prove anything to anyone. You're not less worthy just because you got an A+ on a test or anything like that. It's important on what kind of person you are. But because I was so focused on surviving, I was so focused on just getting through it and just trying to make everyone around me proud, I forgot who I was. I just didn't know who I was. And I remember having a moment of reflection. I was 17 years old, and I was so stressed about VC and all that. And I remember I saw the school counselor, and she's like, why are you so stressed about this? Why do you feel so, like, I understand it's a stressful time, but why does it scare you this much? And I said that, well, if I don't succeed in this, I'm not good at anything else. I'm not talented, or at least in my head, I didn't think I was. I didn't necessarily think I was attractive or would get a partner or anything like that. I didn't think I was social. I didn't think I was anything. And I said, the only thing that I've got going for me in my life is my intellect. And if I can't do that, then what the hell, who am I? And if you're always going to pursue something based off of fear of whether you'll be accepted or not, you always know it's going to fail. And so after high school, I sort of went through this breaking point of, screw this. I'm not going to play a role anymore. I'm just going to be me. And so I had fun, you go clubbing, you do all that kind of stuff, when you finish high school. And so I suppose I had to lose my way a little bit before I found myself again. And I was really at that point in my life okay with accepting that I'll probably never like myself, that I don't love myself, but this is probably how it's ever going to be. Because everyone would always advocate self-love, love yourself, accept yourself, go out there and be the best you and all of this crap. And I'm like, yeah, easy for you. I'm probably going to spend the rest of my life not liking myself. But what I was doing is I was playing victim. I was saying all of these situations happened to me. All of these things happened. And because of that, I can't be happy. But now I am happy because I know how hard life can be. Like, I know how hard life can be. And because of how I know how hard it can be, I'm so grateful for how it is right now. I'm so happy and I'm so abundant. And obviously there's going to be waves, of course. Not every day is going to be the best day. And you're obviously going to have doubts and insecurities and all of those things. But for me, I came to accept that I can't help any of those situations. I can't help what was done to me. But if I'm over the age of 18 and I'm still continuing to act like, oh, I am this way because of my parents, I'm this way because of a childhood experience, you're a victim.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry if that hurts people, but it's true. And I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. Please don't get me wrong, because getting out of that mindset, that's hard. That involves work. I went to therapy, and so it's obviously doing the work is really what helps you get out of that. But you need to understand that after a while, you play a role in your own suffering, because when you're younger, childhood trauma, what it really teaches you is that you kind of have these experiences, these really watered senses of love, or these experiences with your parents. And so what happens is, as you grow older, you actually tend to reject a lot of the healthy examples of love in your life, or tend to reject a lot of people who are there for you in a really authentic and genuine way. And you chase relationships that actually reaffirm the narrative of what you grew up with. And so that's what I would do, is I would often find friendships that I would try to fix people. I would try to surround myself with people where I would try to help them, because that's what I was doing when I was younger, as opposed to surrounding myself with friends and people who were thriving in their own right. And now, was it their fault that the person wasn't ready to grow, or was it my fault that I was choosing to invest all this time in them? I mean, maybe both, but I had to understand that, well, if there's an ongoing thing happening in my life, if there are people in my life that constantly come up with the same problems, I'm the common denominator here. Maybe what am I doing here that's sort of contributing to that? Or maybe telling people that I'm sort of this savior, because I am not. And to say that you're a savior means that you've figured everything out in life, which I have not either.
Yeah.
I And
like
so I would say probably through those experiences, I've come to understand that it's always going to be there too. And that was something that frustrated me a little bit, but also kind of confronted me, where I remember going to the therapist and I said, I just want to be done with this. I just don't want to feel bad about this situation anymore. I am ready, I am grown up, and I am done. And she's like, trauma doesn't work that way. Trauma is ongoing, and it's lifelong, because yes, you had that one experience, maybe you were 4, you were 5, whatever it was, you had those experiences, but that's lifelong. But the way you perceive things will always change, right? For example, when I was 15, the way I perceived a particular experience for when I was 5 was very different to how I would perceive that same experience now, because I've grown up, because my mindset's changed, because I'm in a relationship, because I've develop more of myself. And so what that actually happens, you're often re-traumatized all over again when you enter a new stage of life. And so I know that maybe when I get married, when I have a kid, when I'll know what it's like to be a kid, like to have a kid, right? Then I'm like, wow, I'll re-experience that again, which I don't technically currently have the capacity to, because I'm not married with a kid yet. So I know that when I reach those life stages, so a lot of your old devils do tend to come back. And so when it comes to figuring your life, your childhood trauma, and all of those things as you grow up, it doesn't mean conquering them and getting rid of it. It's being able to reach that level of understanding where you're at in life currently, so that when it comes up again in the future, you know what to do.
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's a lot. That's great. That's some really good stuff. I like how you mentioned how you can, like, when you're traumatized through childhood and you then look for relationships that are the same to almost like fix them or fix people. I think, yeah, that's pretty relatable for me and hopefully some other people. And it's a really interesting way to look at it, because it's a very different perspective. And yeah, it's just interesting how things end up happening, and like why people do certain things, and like what motivates someone, and they don't even know it, you know. Like all these things are happening because you don't even realize, and it's just like your natural reactions and response to things is what you're trying to do based on your life experiences. And trying to understand all of those is so complicated and just like difficult and messy and just like crazy. But it's like you said, it's really hard. But one of the things that I've also learned is that all of the stuff that needs to be done is quite simple but hard. Things are very simple to do, simple to explain, and like you might hear someone say, let go of it. Like all you need to do is let go of it. So simple, so simple. But the difficulty in the actual letting go is extremely hard, you know.
Totally.
I want to touch a little bit more on though you and your experience and your relationship with your parents and your siblings through your childhood and now, I guess, because I'm like, I just like love learning about people's family dynamics and relationships with their siblings, and how they have changed, and you know, their parents, and all of that, because
Yeah.
obviously like I've had a pretty like messy, wild life as well. So it's just always fascinating. So yeah, please.
Yeah, of course. I love that because I think because of my childhood experiences, I there's a lot of benefits that's come out of it too. And I would say my siblings are probably they're my best friends, right? Like my brother is 8 years younger than me, my sister's 2.5 years younger than me. And there was a time where it was really hard to connect with them, because especially when we were in our teen years, like I was 17, my sister was 14, she was like that middle child, kind of did her own thing, and I was the older kid who couldn't really do much and felt very much under the guise of my family, or that at least that's how I felt.
Mm.
There was a lot of disconnect there. But as we kind of grew older, we've come to realize we had the same experiences through completely different lenses, and we always have each other's back. So my sister and my brother, they're one of my best friends. We have the best time together. They're always pushing me and encouraging me, and they're also pursuing things in their own right. My sister's an artist. Her name is Shredder. Give her a follow
Nice,
on
nice.
Instagram, and she is amazing, and she inspires me all the time. You know, she's out there and, you know, making things happen for herself. She's out there making her dreams come true. She's not just a bystander in her life. And that inspires me. And same with my brother, you know, he's 16 years old and, you know, his mindset is incredible. Like I definitely wasn't thinking like that at 16. He's, you know, reading Rich Dad Poor Dad and all these finance books and wants to get into content creation and talking about all these things. And he's doing his VCE, and it's just and fitness as well. That's a huge thing that he's into as well. And so it's when you've got other people in your life who've been through the same thing as you, but you see them removing their excuses in your life, it doesn't give you the right to be a victim. How can you when you've seen other people go through the same thing and they're not, or they've conquered it? And I love that we're all so different, you know, different personalities. My brother's like the younger, goofy one. I think you can relate to that.
Yeah.
And my sister's kind of like that middle child with her middle child ways, and it's great because we learn so much from one another. And I suppose with my parents, my dad, he remarried. And you know, I would say the relationship I have with them now, it's good. It's healthier than it used to be, but of course there's always room to grow there. There's always rooms to sort of figure that out and communicate that. But sometimes in the journey of personal development, and I hope you can feel like maybe you'll resonate as well, is that your parents aren't on that same journey as you. They're not intentionally growing as you are. And so just because you're ready to break through on a lot of things, it doesn't necessarily mean they are as well. And so a lot of what my healing with my parents was probably acceptance more than anything else. Was that, you know, I'm probably not going to get the validation maybe that I'm seeking. And I need to be okay with that. Because sometimes when we're hurt and when people hurt us, we want them to come around and tell us, I'm sorry, I hurt you. I can imagine that was so difficult.
Yeah.
And there's a wonderful video of this lady, and she talks about that. She's like, do you not know how painful that was? Do you not know how hurt you were when that situation happened? Why do you need the person who hurt you to tell you that? Give that back to yourself. And so what that really meant for me was now in a position where I'm able to communicate my feelings. And we've definitely come a long way. Like my parents have grown a lot. You know, they're Indian, right? And so they to talk about your feelings and emotional expression and all of that kind of stuff isn't something that they necessarily grew up with. And I believe that they are doing the best that they can, but it's always going to be ongoing. Always going to be ongoing. And I think for me, a lot of my understanding with them is it's rooted in forgiveness too, because where they're from, you know, they grew up in India, they moved here in the 80s, 90s, there was an arranged marriage between my parents, completely different life experience. They didn't necessarily have the privilege of doing the work. And that's what I do believe. Work is privilege. You should, to be able to go to therapy, to be able to have those conversations, like what you said, being able to find your own community. That's hard. But me and my siblings have had the opportunity to find that. That's great because things will keep running through family generations until it runs into me. And I vowed to myself that it's going to end with me. and I'm going to start something new, something positive.
Yeah, it seems to be a reoccurring topic for me sort of lately, is just hearing and seeing that, like, it's almost like our duty. This is how I feel. It's like our duty to stop all this generational trauma and to
Mm,
to just have it stop here, and then whatever we produce and grow is the best possible outcome, you know.
mm.
And it's hard though, because I was actually having a conversation with my sort of mentor. I've said this in like 3 podcasts, like he's my mentor, but he's like, he doesn't know, or like maybe he does, I don't know. But
Surprise.
yeah, and we sort of like had this discussion or like talk about how, like, would it ever be possible to even like not, no matter what, like not cause some sort of trauma for your children, even though
Mm,
you work on all of your stuff and you handle all of your shit. Like, do you think even however you grow them that way, there will still be some sort of thing that needs to be dealt with? And
yeah.
his answer was like, he thinks yes. He thinks that every, like,
Yeah.
your life is here to heal yourself. Like, that's what we're here for. We're here to heal ourselves and then pass on positivity, and just continue that like grow cycle of like improve, grow, heal, grow, heal, grow, heal, grow. And it's
Yeah.
really interesting because it's
Totally.
this
Yeah. Wow.
perspective of me, which is young 25-year-old, like generational trauma stopping with me. It's done. And then like this
Yeah.
58-year-old, like, yeah, but you never know, you know, if you heal everything for yourself, that doesn't necessarily mean what you pass down um
It's going to be
is
perfect.
perfect, you know. And it's
Yeah.
those like age gaps which I really love to talk to people like that, because, you know, it just kind of like gives me a wake up call, and I'm like, whoa,
Mm,
man, yeah, true, so true. I had no idea. I didn't think like that, and
mm.
it's completely possible.
Totally.
um, but yeah, what's one of your, how do you deal with fear? I don't know where this
Mm.
came from, but I just curious.
I don't. I just work through it. I just do it in spite of how I feel.
So like going against your feelings, and you're just like, screw it.
I feel fear.
Yeah.
I am I'm scared. I get scared of things. I was scared before jumping on this podcast today. I was scared, you know, pursuing things. I'm scared to, go up on stage to speak, or when I'm doing a business meeting, or when I'm mentoring someone. I feel all of that, but I do it anyway
Mm,
because I know that it's trying to protect me. Fear is a protective mechanism. It's your body's way of telling you stay safe. Don't do it. But I know by doing those things, it's good for me. And so I do it anyway. Now, that doesn't mean walk down a dark alleyway at night because I can do whatever I want. Not what I'm saying.
yeah,
Please don't take it like that. What I mean is, when you're put into situations that challenge you and you feel fear, that's healthy. It means you're growing. Because if you're living a life in absence of fear, you're not living a life worth remembering. You're not living a life that's worth of significance, because you're not going out there and doing something that challenges you. Like, I see people that I coach and mentor, and there are some very difficult conversations they need to have with some family members, right? Some dysfunction, whatever it is. They don't look forward to those conversations.
mm,
They do it because it's what they need to do. And so it's sort of kind of recognizing that fear is that, understanding the role that it plays. And because it's really interesting, because what is fear? How would you define fear?
it's a good question. Fear. Well, there is the part of the unknown. It's like stepping into something you don't know the outcome of.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like the possibility that stepping into the unknown could result in something negative for yourself or
Yeah.
hurtful.
Amazing. Yeah.
You
How would you define faith then?
faith. Um, well, I would define faith with more around like belief that whatever comes from the unknown will be positive, I think. But then I would question about how I would use the word positive.
Or more favorable, maybe.
Yeah. But I think I would want to say like, I don't know if I'd use faith as the word, but but something where it's more like stepping into the unknown. It doesn't matter the outcome, which is it's not faith, because I guess faith is more of the looking forward into it, and what the way I would look at it would be, how am I going to handle what happens from the unknown? So it wouldn't be a faith thing. It would be more of just like a, how would I handle
surrender
it?
thing.
Yeah, like a surrender thing, and just being okay with no matter the outcome. But yeah, it's interesting. Sorry,
that is cool. I love that, because in those situations, I choose faith over fear every time. And I really like what you said about faith not necessarily being a positive outcome, but that's why it's positive, because it's the outcome that's meant for you. And that's why it's a positive one, because it's meant for you. It may not be the one that you want. It may not be that it's going to always work out. But the difference between fear is that unknown, but fearing it'll take a negative.
Yeah.
Faith is the unknown, but taking a positive. But what is positive? Positive is something that's meant to work out for you. Doesn't mean it'll feel good or be what you want. And so now when I go into everything, I operate from faith and surrender, which is whatever happens, this is going to work out for me. And that's good.
Yeah,
that's going to work out.
I really like that. It's just having that outlook of almost like, no matter what it is going to be a positive in some sort of way. Even if it's inherently bad or objectively bad or negative, you're having to deal with those things, because those things are then teaching you something, which is then the positive that you're getting out of this whole thing. And I think it's important to keep the mind frame or outlook on life that, like, there is almost like no such thing as a negative outcome, because if you have the right mindset, there is no such thing as a negative outcome, because anything in air quotes that's negative, you can just, depending on your mindset, make it into a positive. And
totally, yeah.
I think that's something I've been able to be like pretty blessed to be able to do. And yeah, I don't know, it's sort of pretty like cool, I guess, to be able to just like look at all of this negative stuff or some like outcome or your current position and be like, it's like really, I can see like 5 reasons why this could be a good thing,
Yeah.
And it makes you happier. It makes you
totally
look at things in a brighter light. It makes you maybe like show other people the way that you could look at things. I think that's something I also kind of want to like portray and communicate to people, is like how to have like this positive outlook on like any situation, this positive view or optimistic outlook on things, because so many people I've met and so many experiences that I've had, people just choose this negative path, and then they take this like a victim. Things have happened to me. This is negative, and now it's made me negative. Or there's all these reasons why someone's negative. But like, if you just change the way you look at it, like take 2 steps to your left and look at the same thing, it's like, maybe it's a really good, or it could be really good that this thing happened to me, or I don't know, someone broke up with me, because this is actually giving me now time for myself to redefine myself, to grow. And like, there's so many things. But I'm gonna ramble onto one side story here, because it just came into my mind, which is, I was camping with my friends, and no one asked, by the way, but I'm gonna go for it.
I'm so here for the story. Let's hear it.
Thank you. No, we were camping, and we were I don't know what we were doing. We're camping. We're sharpening sticks. Like we're taking the bark of the stick and like basically carving these like staffs for some reason, just around a campfire, doing like camping stuff. And I had this knife, and I've been hacking this thing for like a day. It could have been like 2 days, and it's been going great. It's been going awesome, and I'm like almost done with this thing. And just at the end, the knife snaps off the handle, and I'm like, no, like this whole thing is ruined. And then I'm thinking for like 1 second, and And then I just like look at it and I just pick it up and I'm like, oh well, look, at least the blade didn't break. So I'm just holding like this little like piece of metal, not with the handle, but like in a way that's like still able to be used. And
Oh my goodness.
my friend's like, man, there's like never a bad outcome for you. And I'm like, huh, I didn't think about that.
Hmm.
But like true, actually. Like the way I handled that, I was like, huh. And I kind of just like try to keep that kind of mind frame with like any
Yeah.
situation. Think back to like broken knife. At least it still works, you know? It could be
Yeah.
gone or it could have been far, far worse, you know? But anyway, that's it.
It's a figuring out mentality. It's
Yeah.
like you can't control what life's going to do, but you can figure it out. You
Mm,
can get there in a maybe different way. And sometimes it's not just going to be from A to B. It's probably going to be like, and then you'll get there anyway.
mm,
Maybe it doesn't look like the way you want, but that's life. And to think that life is just going to be like, you know what, Nate, you're right. You wanted this. Here you go.
yeah.
That's not how it works.
Mm,
That's not how it is. It's it comes to you just not in the form that you want. There's a really great analogy that comes to mind when you shared that story, and it's like we say that we wanted cake, and so the universe, whatever it is, gives us eggs, flour, sugar, milk,
mm,
and then we're still mad that we didn't get a cake.
yeah.
It's because we didn't get the cake in the form that we wanted, but we did get it.
Yeah, that's great. I like that. I've heard baking a cake analogy for so many things, and that's another really good one.
There's nothing bad with cake, so
Yeah. But yeah, you know, it's so like how do you try to like, or how do you like learn to change your perspective like that? You know, like what do you think is a way for someone to change the way they look at things? It's a hard thing because it's like it seems so simple, you know. It seems so like, yeah, just look at it from this different angle, and you know, we say like just take 2 steps to the left and look at it from a different perspective. But like, why is that so hard?
because you're right, anything that's simple doesn't necessarily mean it's easy. It's actually quite hard. And changing you is probably one of the hardest things of all because we're going against the grain of what we've been conditioned to act like. Because when we have certain experiences, we create these personality traits or we create these mechanisms as a way of protecting us or being our armor, and we carry on life and we say, this is just who I am, this is how I am, this is my personality type, this is how it is. It's easier to say that. It's easier to say all of those things versus admitting that I'm just scared to let go. I'm just scared to be vulnerable. I'm scared to really get to know myself. And so I would urge anyone who's ready to do the work. First of all, I commend you on that because that's hard. And making the decision to go to work, to do the work, it's a really incredibly important one. The way that I found that I've been able to change my perspective is continuously doing things that sort of go against my limiting beliefs or my identity's limiting beliefs. So I'll give you an example. I said I don't like, when I was, before business, I'd say I don't like people. I don't like talking to people. I'm an introvert. I like to be at home and have my 1 to 2 friends that I talk to, and that's it. I don't like going to parties. I don't like doing this. That's just not who I am. So how did I grow? I went out and I met people. I quite literally did the very thing that I said that I didn't want to do, and that wasn't who I was. And guess what happened? I love people now.
Mm,
I genuinely love being around people. Like, I love the concept of getting to know someone and having a conversation with them and hearing their experiences and being able to sort of expand my own mindset. I love it. I wouldn't have known that I loved it if I kept on continuing the identity that I was too scared to. And I find that people want to do change in these huge, like, things by like this transformation. This thing is going to happen and I'm just going to change who I am. I'm just going to, no. Change comes from daily incremental decisions of doing something a little bit different. Instead of taking the elevator, I'm going to go up the stairs.
mm,
Instead of going for the hamburger, I'm going to go for the salad. instead of going on social media, I'm going to pick up a book. That's what changes. And making that same decision every day, because I don't remember an exact point in my life where I changed my perspective on a lot of things, but I remember the first decision, which was, hey, I'm just going to go for a walk around the block first. I'm going to start building my discipline. It really all starts there.
Yeah, I like it. Actually reminds me of I've read this book. It's called The Guide to the Good A Guide to the Good Life by, where is it? I forget his name. William B. Irving, maybe is his name. It's about Stoicism, and one of the teachings that he talks about from Stoicism, which if anyone hasn't heard of Stoicism or looked into it, I recommend it. It's a very logical, like non-spiritual way almost of like life philosophy. And I love it. It's not like my whole thing that I'm like big on, but I've read it, and it's funny how some things have just like, I just found like as a kid I was just like doing these weirdly stoic things that I read now, and I'm like, what the hell, I was doing that back then, like so weird.
You were like a Yoda child, right? Just like as a kid, just fully in a different state. You know, like Yoda, like the...
Nah, no way. No way was I like a Yoda child. I think I just grew up, on a quick side tangent. I think I just grew up being the youngest and like seeing everyone in my family and like just seeing everything, and then being able to just like look at everything and find the things that I really like from everyone and the things that I really don't like from everyone, and just like acquire all of the good things, because I just like, I had this weird decision in my life, I think maybe I was 17, and I pretty much just like looked at myself and I thought like things that were happening for me, and I just decided like I don't want to be how I am right now, like the kind of person I am. I want to have a good positive impact on people, because I think that I wanted to become the thing that I felt like I needed, maybe.
Yeah.
And I just decided like to like imagine this version of me that I wanted to be and make it my like life goal or my life purpose to just become the best possible person that I could be. And I use the terminology to round my edges was my whole thing. And that, like, and since then I've just like living my life based on that, and it's been really helpful. But so like that's that.
Amazing.
And there's a lot more into that, but we'll continue to the Stoic teaching, which is about making like purposely putting yourself in uncomfortable situations to widen your like uncomfortability range. So they talk about, if you're never doing things that make you uncomfortable, your range is like this far, and if you're just listening, it's like 4 centimeters. And then if you just incrementally do these things that you don't like to do, your uncomfortability range is just getting wider and wider, and you can now tolerate more and more stuff. And the wider you make your uncomfortability range, the easier you can handle things. And so they use very small, tiny incremental, like, what's the word? I've just blanked on a word. Examples. Oh my god. Like, if you're going out for the day and it's like a little bit cold, don't take a jacket. Just go, and you know you're going to be cold. Just go. Just don't take a jacket. Go cold. Or go and approach and talk to people that you normally wouldn't do it, just like you said. And put yourself in these situations that force you to be intentionally uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that just like hardens your or strengthens your ability to deal with these things. And as time goes on, you can do more and more difficult things. It's like physical exercise.
Yeah.
You're doing strenuous physical exercise, not because it feels good at the time, it's because it's so hard, and you're building resilience and mental strength and the ability to deal with anything. You know, I started doing jiu-jitsu after soccer, and that was like the hardest thing ever.
That's amazing.
And jiu-jitsu made, after I finished a class of jiu-jitsu, getting literally like smashed, or my brother like destroying me, and I'm like beaten and red and just like broken, I'm like, yeah, I can handle anything else today because I did this, you know. And it's like those things just to like make yourself uncomfortable, stop being comfortable, and be comfortable being uncomfortable. And And that's just like a whole thing from sort of like Stoicism, which I found, and not just
Absolutely.
Stoicism, but like a lot of things. But anyway, that's that.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I really, really like that. Stoicism is really fascinating to me because it talks very much about, I think sometimes I used to think Stoicism was the absence of emotion,
Yeah, that's what he
but that's
talks
not what
on.
it is at all.
Yeah, yeah.
It's actually emotional thinking, but not acting in spite of it, which is very much what we try to embody today. Because emotions are supposed to inform us, they're not meant to dictate something. It's fine that when you allow your emotions to dictate outcomes in your life, you're in trouble because your life as a result becomes variable and it becomes very wavy and inconsistent because so are emotions. And so, any times when you're feeling stuff, and like you say, when you're feeling fear or when you're scared to, go up to someone and talk to someone, or when you're scared before you go into like a jujitsu competition, let's say, you go, okay, cool. I feel the fear. How can I break through that? What can I do in spite of that? Because I find now emotions play a very different role in my life versus when they used to. I'll give you an example. Jealousy. When I saw somebody who was progressing maybe in life in a way that I wanted, I would be jealous. And I always saw that as a bad thing. And to a degree, it can be if it's consuming you, if it's occupying your mental space, if you're not really doing anything with that. But now, when I feel a little bit envious over something, let's just say I see someone who's very successful in business, or I see someone who's very fit, and I feel a little envious. Okay, it's good because it shows that I desire it. Because you only feel envious of something that you desire, right? So let's just say there's an example. I see somebody who's living an incredible life in rural Australia. They're camping, they're like, in a caravan, and they're sort of living a very, very nature-driven life. I'm not envious of that because that's not meant for me. I don't want that. But I can get envious over things, maybe people traveling around the world, people, doing, speaking on stages, things like that, because I want that. And so what I now do is, instead of allowing it to sort of go through me, I go, okay, what is this trying to tell me? How can I use it to my advantage? And now when I feel envious of something, I'm like, good. Shows that you want it. Shows that you desire it. Shows that you have ambition, you have a goal, you have something that you're working towards. And reframing that, right? Reframing those feelings and using it to your advantage. Oh my gosh, like, because so until probably last couple of years, I would feel things and say, okay, how can I avoid feeling this? How can I allow this feeling to kind of go away? That's not the point. It's to sit with it, let it marinate in you. Cool. Now what are you going to do about it? Which isn't going to be volatile or chaotic. So that's sort of what came up when you talked about all of that.
Yeah. What do you want most out of your life?
Legacy.
Why?
Because I want my impact and my message and everything that I'm doing in my life to outlive me, because it's not really about me at all. I believe that I'm a vessel, and I have been fortunate enough to be touched with this vision that I have for my life, God willing, universe willing, whatever it might be. And I was given that vision. And so with that vision, it means going and living a life outside of myself, because how selfish was I years ago when I thought my entire life was about me, my success, my income, my family, my this, my that. How selfish. No, it's nothing to do with me. Yes, I want things and I want all of those things, but that's not all success is about. I want my life to be lived in a way where, the same way messages and knowledge and education and impact was imparted onto me, I want to impart onto others. Because God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. And so I feel called to be able to impact other people and inspire them and really help them level up so they live their best version of life. And I want that to continue long after I'm gone. Not necessarily through namesake or just being like Navya this, Navya that. Fame isn't necessarily something that I'm actively pursuing. That's different. Nothing wrong with it if that's what you want, but that's maybe not on the forefront of my mind. What I'm really thinking about is I want people to remember how I made them feel, and I want them to be able to continue that. And true impact is understanding that it's never really about you in the first place. It's allowing things to happen through you for the benefit of others. And so when I'm gone, it'll still continue. And that's legacy, and that's what I want.
Nice. That's good. I think it's sort of similar for myself in a way. I think I just want to be able to get, or maybe the word is to inspire other people to then want to inspire other people. So it's like, I would love to inspire people. Why? Because I feel like it's just what I want to do. I think there's a lot of hurt and pain in the world, and I think why is because I've been inspired before. I've been very inspired in my life by like a lot of things.
Who inspires you?
Who?
Or what?
What? I think just being growing up, I played a lot of like competitive soccer is one of the things that I feel like I had to deal with a lot of inspiration, and we did a lot of competitions, played a lot of competitions, did a lot of really, really hard physical work, pre-seasons, like all this stuff. And just throughout that, my dad was my coach for a lot of it. And my dad was a really, I don't know what it is about him, but he's really, really good at inspiring people, like getting the best out of them. He's a teacher. He's always been a teacher and then a coach, and he loves to teach. He loves to teach people. So I think just he's just very good at inspiring and getting the most out of people. I think I've also sort of just seen things and people do like incredible things, or have facing hardships and coming out of it because of their mindset and the way that they've done something, the way they've looked at something, and the way they've changed themselves. And that's like inspiring to me, not playing the victim role, and almost like having courage, I think, is something that's really inspiring. Seeing people be courageous is really inspiring. And I think that's one of the things my dad tried to instill in everyone that he taught, not just me, but like everyone. And being a leader and being positively influential for people and helping people, like leaving no one behind. And so just like a lot of these messages, I think is what makes me want to feel like, and just being inspired and feeling like I can't do this, or I'm just like at the bottom of it all, and I'm hopeless, or whatever it is. But then being inspired, that feeling is like, oh, it's just like reigniting something in you that you can just, I can do it. I got the energy. It's like you changing energy, whatever it is. So I think that's like the reason I want to inspire people, is because I know how good it feels to be and how helpful it is to be inspired. And how transformative it can be. And that there's like a lot of hurt in the world, and pain, and like confusion, and fear and doubt, and all of this sort of stuff. And I guess just being able to inspire people to want to inspire other people. Like if I could get one person to listen to me, and then they want to now inspire someone else, that's it. My job's done.
Your job's done.
But yeah, I don't know. Just who knows?
That's
like,
amazing.
Don't need to keep a name for it. Just like imagine everyone could do that, or everyone wanted to do that, and everyone had the same mindset to want to do that and positively impact others and help others and leave no one behind, and like have that leader sort of like encourage. Imagine everyone was like that. You know how crazy this world would be? How awesome! Like, like where we would be as humanity.
Mm.
And I love thinking of the future, like what the world could be. It's always something that I imagined or thought of as a child. It's just like,
Yeah.
what could the world be?
What is the ideal world looking like for you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now? Are you asking me now? What?
Yeah, I can ask that. Yeah, I was just saying it, but I'd love to know what your
Oh,
ideal world is.
the ideal world? I don't even know, man. The ideal world now. Whoa. Just like no war, like no, like just peaceful. You know,
Mm.
I think like the world is so amazing because we have so many different cultures and religions and histories. But why can't if we could all just live like that different and diverse and but together and like
Mm.
helping everyone's main goal is to like help everyone else. Oh,
Mm.
I think that would be awesome.
Yeah.
No selfishness and like desire for power over other people. Just but that takes everyone in the world. That takes the world leaders to be like introspective and willing
Yeah.
to work on their ego and all of their stuff, which is like I don't know if that will. It won't happen in our lifetime, but like I don't know, maybe who knows?
It's a
What about you?
wonderful goal. Yeah,
Thank you.
because in the root of all conflict is really people's inability to understand and accept one another. That really is all conflict is. If we fundamentally look at it, it's people disagreeing with each other because they don't see each other's point of view. And because of that, it's been exacerbated and now it's kind of come to all these things that we're seeing currently in the world. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because so much healing can come from understanding. And something that you said before is that really like moved me, which was, I want to inspire people and I want to inspire people to inspire others. That's amazing because we've heard this saying over and over, hurt people hurt people. And that is probably true for a lot of us when we in our growing up and our experiences, but I believe healed people can also heal people. And so when I talked about things running into my family until they run into me, it's I want to heal a lot of the things that came there so I can go on and heal others that do that. And it's sort of like what you were sharing, it doesn't mean getting rid of problems and concerns. It just means having greater awareness to address them, as well as going forward and putting your best forward and really just being a light in people's life. There's one thing that I've learned in my journey in business, in mentorship and all of that is there are so many people who kind of fumble around in the darkness because they just don't know any better. They don't see anything. They're not inspired by anyone else. And so even if that light is you to a varying level, that could be the difference to whether someone sort of does incredible things with their life or they don't.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much complexity to humans and human relationships and our societies and why people do things. What's you mentioned before about talking on stage, and this is something I actually wanted to get to. And like you're doing some coaching.
Mm-hmm.
What's that been like for you? Moving into that role of becoming like a mentor, like sort of like a mentor coach, and yeah, then like now you're on stage talking in front of like hundreds of people, and like so daunting, you know?
Yeah, it has been a full circle moment. It really has, because when you're mentoring someone else, you are quite literally applying what you said before, which is you're inspiring others to inspire others. Because you're telling them, hey, this is how you can go out there and add value to people, and they go out there and do that. You're indirectly creating a lot of impacts. And it's very daunting because at the beginning of my business journey, I don't think I had the self-image to even understand how I could do that. I was like, what would I mentor people about? I don't know anything. And I just didn't have the self-image at the time to think that I had anything of importance to say. But I genuinely believe that everyone has a story worth telling. Everyone. And I guess that's a very premise of your podcast too, which is, everyone has a story and everyone deserves to be able to share their story. And I've always been it's been an asset in my life where I've been comfortable communicating and public speaking and things like that. I've never
Publicly
spoken in
spoken.
public
Yeah.
about things that related to my life or vulnerability. And so when I spoke on stage, I was scared because I wasn't talking about a random topic. I wasn't talking about something abstract. I wasn't talking about something that was an idea or a myth or a what be or it could be. It was me. It was my story. It was as vulnerable as I could be. It was imperfect. And that's what terrified me about it, because I think I've been chasing perfection for the longest time in my life and not wanting to make a mistake and not wanting to show up and say the wrong thing and cause a lot of damage. But maturity in mentorship, and particularly when you're adding value to other people, is you don't have all the right answers, but it's my answer right now, and that's the best that I can do. And I find that when you tell that to people, it's the best thing. And this is something I do tell people that I coach and mentor. I'm like, I may not always have the right answer. I'm probably going to tell you the wrong thing sometimes, but I will do everything that I can to address it if I do. If I make a mistake, I'll try to fix it. I'll try to navigate that with you. And so when you're honest with people about your humanness, they're so much more willing to accept you. They're so much more open with you, because when you carry around acting like you're perfect, acting like you've got it all together, that makes you unrelatable, and that makes you really hard to connect with. And for me, that's probably been one of my biggest things, working through that, overcoming this perfectionism.
Nice. Yeah, I can relate to that feeling, like the power in being just like imperfect, and the power in being vulnerable and open and like sharing your story. And but I think like that's the very thing that's the most powerful because like when you're open and vulnerable and people can relate to you, then it allows them to be more comfortable and open themselves, which is like that's where the real growth is happening, when people are open and truthful and honest about the reality of things. But like you can't, or you wouldn't do that if you don't feel comfortable, or if you don't feel safe or relatable, or if you feel like an outcast, you're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, something that I've really tried to work on developing for myself, is trying to make people really comfortable when I talk to them, and welcomed and open. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just like my way I talk to people. They hear like an accent, so I have to like explain half my life story, and then they're like, maybe a bit more open or something, you know? Maybe that's it. I don't know. But yeah, like you said, there's so much to learn from everyone and their experiences. And I was talking to a friend the other day about how every person has so much value, right? No matter who, like literally, no matter who you are, you have so much value. It just depends on how can you find the value, how can you pull the value, and how can you communicate the value.
Yeah.
And like you said, this podcast is sort of all about that. It's how can I speak to people to get the value from any kind of person, and like shine the light on it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, what's I have two more questions, I think, before we sort of wrap this up.
Yeah.
And one of them is, this one's a trial question, actually. Like I had a thought the other night while I was in bed, couldn't sleep, and this question came into my mind. It is, if you had to define your life in 3 words, or with three separate words, what would those 3 words be? And you can take your time on this thinking.
So if I had to summarize my life and my life goals in 3 words?
Just your life so far. So if you had to describe your life so far with 3 words, what are those 3 words?
Transformation, love, and legacy.
And which of those is most relative right now?
Well, I explained, I guess, before about how legacy plays a huge part in my life and how I try to embody that every day. But I would say transformation has probably been the biggest thing, and something that I'm really processing and getting through, because I believe in human transformation, in that it's always going to be ongoing and it's always going to happen. We're going to have different phases in our life and we're going to be learning different things. And I remember, like, in one phase of our life, we've got our childhood, we go through these experiences, we learn things, and then we become young adolescents and we're kind of angry and we're emotional and we're sort of processing a lot of that stuff. And then we get into our adulthood, we get into these relationships, and a lot of that kind of comes out, and we're kind of processing there. And I find that the one common consensus with all of those life stages is personal transformation as I've entered each of them. Because transformation isn't always necessarily a good thing, but in my life it always has been to some degree, because change is really welcomed for me, and I've had to reframe a lot of that, because going back to what I was talking about around not being able to express myself emotionally, when you block yourself from being emotional and not being able to connect with other people, you prevent yourself from really getting to know you too. Because when you're angry, you're like, I actually don't know why I'm angry. Why am I upset? Why am I sad? Like, I don't know. I don't know who I am. I don't know why I'm responding this way. And power of personal transformation is being able to get to know yourself. And so when you have these moments of growth, or when you kind of enter a new phase in life, or when you have those conversations with your partner, and when you have those conversations with your mentor, it is so amazing to meet myself again. I'm like, it is so good to meet you, Navya. I am so glad to have met you, because I see you. And that took time, because I was a stranger to me for the longest time. And so I find that personal transformation only brought me closer to me, not further away. And through that, I've been able to evolve who I am through that. And I'm excited by that. I'm excited by that prospect, because when let's say I'm in my 30s and 40s, I don't know who I'll be.
Yeah.
I'd like to think I'll have the same values, and I believe that the same values will stay the same, but I genuinely believe that I will be saying things and talking about things that I couldn't even conceive now. And that's freaking exciting to me.
Yeah.
That's so exciting. That's transformative. Think about it. In 10 years, who knows where this podcast is going to be? Who knows who you're going to be impacting? That's exciting. And so I think transformation is something, and change is something we need to embody more of. Because how amazing is it to see yourself evolve and grow beyond a particular state? Because if you're in the same place, and if you're thinking in the same way and you're acting in the same way over 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, congratulations, you've moved backwards, because you're in the same place that you were 10 years ago. But then if you go 10 years from now, I'm in a completely different place. Maybe may not be the place that you want or could create for yourself, but you've moved on. That's transformation. And I think that is where a lot of our power as human beings comes from, because our ability to connect with other people and our ability to really add value to people is through having a wealth of human experiences and making a lot of bad decisions. Because I've made a lot of bad decisions. That's why I know how to make good ones now. And so allowing myself to explore that and experience that and transform through that has been one of the biggest things in my life to date, and I believe it will continue to be.
Beautiful. I love it. It reminds me of this thought I had a while ago about just momentum and starting to change. If you want to change, if you want to make any change, like, actually it might have come up in our relationship with my partner and I think she could be talking about like her life direction. And I said to her, like, you don't need to know the answer of where you want to be. Just start in any direction. If you're stuck, just start in any direction. Start literally anywhere, and it will set you on a path in a direction, and that will be all you need to take you to the next path and the next path and the next path. And it just start something very small, whatever it is. But it could be the completely wrong thing. It could be like, I'm gonna go learn this skill. Like you learn it, you hate it, but you started, so now you know, okay, I don't like this, I'm gonna try something else. But now you've got momentum in a direction, and now you're changing. So I think it's just like important to know that you never need to know the right way to go or whatever it is. It's just go in a direction, you know?
Yeah, totally. And that's what inspires. Because when we think about all the people who inspire us, right? Like, and you talked about your dad, talked about all these people, they've probably messed up. It's probably why he instills courage so much in your life, because there was probably a stage in his life where he lacked it and maybe felt the regret of that. And so it's important for us to make mistakes, because I believe so passionately about transformation, because there was a period of my life where I was too scared to, and it was holding me back big time. And so it's understanding that there is no wrong decision. And I think that's why a lot of people are scared to make a decision, or afraid to move on, or do that podcast, or apply for that job, or, you know, go out there and make that business contact, or whatever it is. They're scared to fail, but failure is what gives you experience, because not putting yourself out there makes you inexperienced. It makes you small-minded to a certain level, because then you're going to think in absolutes. You're going to think the world is always like this. Things are always going to happen this way. Well, how do you know? You haven't experienced it.
Yeah.
And so...
No, go on.
No, go on.
You go.
I was going to say that, you know, the world is ugly. You know, people say the world is ugly, the world is scary, the world is all of these things. Absolutely. But that's what makes it human, is because humans are not perfect. And we need to get that mind, that thing in our head out. Because sometimes it was easy for me to see very successful people and go, they're perfect. They probably do nothing wrong. They probably, you know, get everything right the first time. No, they just knew how to get up more times than I did.
Yeah.
And because of that, and because they've been able to get over it that much, they're miles ahead of me, which is good. It means that we can all be there someday, to whatever that looks like for us.
Yeah, I like it. There's what you mentioned before. People don't want to like make the decisions or go step into it to start something new, or they fear that they don't want to make the wrong decision. And it's something that's also sort of come up for me lately, is just like indecision as a topic in general, and how just I guess I've observed or noticed how much indecision there is in the world, and how much people are outsourcing their decisions to other things.
Yes.
What asking people, what should I do? What should I eat? What should I get? What should I do? What's all this stuff? And when you actually like notice it, it is everywhere. And then when it comes to like people, then you start making life decisions based on your indecision, which you've outsourced to someone else, and then you've become, now you're in some position you don't even like to be in, and then it's horrible, you know. And being able to strengthen your ability to make decisions is like a superpower.
Yeah.
My friend, actually, I asked my friend when we were in Bali this year, I said, like, if you could have one superpower, what would it be? And at the time I thought it was a ridiculous answer, but he said, after some thought, he said the power to make the right decision every single time. And I thought, wow. Because he told me how much he feels like he outsources decisions and like never knows what to do and all this stuff. And I thought, wow, that's a really weird answer, but like great answer. You know,
I can undersee that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
You know, because there's a speaker within our network, and he's incredibly successful, and he spoke this, and it was just so moving. It was, you know, if we want to go out to a restaurant, what do? We look at the menu, we look at the reviews. We don't care if the food looks good, but we look at what everyone else says. We want to watch a movie, we look at the reviews. And if we want to see that movie and we see the reviews are really bad, then we don't watch it. And it's like, since when? Since when did it become worse to make a mistake than let someone else think for you? And now we live in a world where letting other people make a decision for us is quite literally better than making a mistake. because we don't want to show everyone we stuffed up, we made a mistake. It's like, since when did that get worse?
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to own, well, I'm in a period of my life now where I'm trying to own that. Like when your friend said, I want to make the right decision every time, I would just say to be able to make a decision would be mine. Because whether it's the right or wrong decision, you'll figure it out. I mean, you've made bad decisions, right? You've made decisions you're like, wow, that was really bad. I really shouldn't have done that. But then you get you get hindsight, you learn. There is no wasted decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think definitely, like, there is no bad decision. There is no wrong decision. You know, like this is what we were talking about before. It's like somehow takes courage to just make a decision, because when you get there, it's like, oh, and on the most simple terms, I ordered a meal that tastes bad. Oh no, I now know not to get that meal next time. Like, you know what I mean? But all of these decisions are like, for some reason, this invisible pressure to be making the right decision all the time, and that doesn't allow people to be making any decisions for themselves. And I think it just comes back to like the having courage, stepping into the fear, and just like make your own decisions for yourself.
Totally.
And there is no wrong decision ever. You know. Anyway, that was the first question. That's a good answer. The last question I had is, I want you to. So we have 1 million people listening to this right now. There's 1 million people listening, and I want you to say one thing to these 1 million people. What's the one thing you're going to tell these 1 million people?
You said how everyone listening to this podcast is someone who's in the pursuit of something, right? Or working through themselves, or growing and learning and all of that. To everyone who's doing that, sometimes in the pursuit of being better, you actually forget what better feels like sometimes, because you're confronted with all the failures, the mistakes, the traumas, the adversities. All of that hits you first. And so sometimes you actually forget what is waiting for you on the other side. And I just want to reassure everyone that it's normal to feel discouraged by the work sometimes, and that it's not always going to be how you want it to be, and it's not always going to be beautiful, but I can absolutely promise you that it's worth it, and it will continue to be worth it. So just remember that even if it's not where you are right now, or if you haven't really necessarily gotten to where you want to be at the moment, it's the courage to continue that really counts here. And because of that commitment to yourself, you'll do it.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been great.
No, thank you so much for asking me to be a part of this. I have been so proud of your growth, your journey. You've been absolutely smashing it, and it's been an honor to watch you just go from strength to strength, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited for you.
Thank you so much. Right back at you. It's been awesome to keep an eye on how you've been growing, and all of your talks and shows and networking events you're going to. It's sick to see you on stage. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.